This will be my third video on the overwhelming role luck plays in our lives. And by luck, I mean a situational random occurrence or set of occurrences which is or are value neutral. Luck can be either good or bad or somewhere in between. This time, we're going to be looking at the role our choices play or not, and whether the combination of hard work and good choices will overcome our initial state of luck or the luck we experience along the way. But before I do that, I have to tell you that I am absolutely amazed at the blowback I've been getting over this series. I find very few things in life as self-evident, and yet there are people who absolutely hate this idea. And I don't think I'm talking exclusively about the religious folks who might object on theological grounds, where the divine will governs all and everything happens for a reason. I'm not sure if people understand this, but to suggest that luck, for lack of a better term, does not play an overwhelming role in our lives is to suggest that the universe is a benevolent place where justice and equality reign supreme. It is to say that life is, on the whole, fair. And anyone who works hard and makes the right choices, whatever those are, will be rewarded commensurately. That's the broad outline. Specifically, it is to say that people routinely get exactly what they deserve, including Holocaust victims, Africans kidnapped and brought to America as slaves, and the 9-year-old girl who was killed by random gunfire while playing a video game in her bedroom. The idea that people who work hard and make good choices will get ahead is in fact a religious belief lacking any evidence whatsoever. First, it must be understood that the very notion of the average person getting ahead as we understand it today is an extremely novel thing. For the vast majority of people living on the planet, and this is probably true even today, getting ahead was not even a possibility. Getting by, perhaps. Struggling insanely to get by was probably far more likely. But the vast majority of people born on this planet never even had the option of upward mobility. So if you're living at a time when that's even possible, thank Darwin. As to the question of choices, let's start out by recognizing all the various factors over which no one has a choice. You didn't get to choose the time or place of your birth. You didn't get to choose your parents. You didn't get to choose your genetic makeup, your skin color, your height, your looks, your metabolism, your IQ, which hand would be dominant, or the things for which you ended up having a natural talent, or even the discovery or not of some natural ability. All of these things have been shown to play some role, significant or otherwise, in your ability to get ahead, even in a world brimming with opportunity. Because again, opportunities are not distributed equally, and many of those factors, the ones I just mentioned, and which are completely beyond your control, determine the opportunities and choices available to you. In America, we have an extreme, obvious, and ever-present example of an entire ethnicity kept down by luck. People for whom hard work didn't and couldn't pay off, and where choice was literally non-existent, all because they had the luck of being born with different levels of melanin in their skin. Work yourself to death or take a beating. Which of those choices was the good choice for a 19th century slave in America's South? Of course, we haven't enslaved anyone since 1865. The slaves were emancipated, but were they given their equitable, fair share of the American wealth they'd earned and generated? No. Were they given the equal human and voting rights they deserved, which were constitutionally overdue? No. In fact, in certain ways, emancipated slaves went from the frying pan into the fire. Unimaginably poor and kept ignorant by their owners, emancipated slaves were then expected to get by in a world where they were hated by half the country and literally kept from opportunities open to others, where hard work and good choices had little or no chance of paying off. And all without a voice, facing systemic racism, Jim Crow, segregation, lynching, redlining, keeping even those who had been able to succeed to some extent from moving into areas with better schools for their children. And of course, a justice system hell-bent on their destruction. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Hard work and good choices do in fact pay off for some. But if you can't see that telling such people that they would get ahead if only they'd embrace hard work and make good choices is nothing but salt in the wound, making the inequity of their reality even more infuriating than you're just a fucking asshole. Of course, this is an extreme example, and we're separated from the reality by a century and a half. But the bad luck experienced by people long ago is still being felt by those who came a century and a half later. That's the kind of impact luck, both good and bad, can have. And if you really think about it, this example is representative of things which happen to both groups and individuals every day. From the black person shot in their car by a cop whose prejudiced view of blacks causes him or her to fear a person of color irrationally, to the child who is killed in a drunk driving accident, sending his parents into a pattern of depression which ends in the loss of their jobs, their home, and finally divorce. Just like opportunity, choice is not distributed equally. Some of us have a ridiculous abundance of choices, all good, and some of us have very few choices, sometimes all bad. Some of us have choices like, should I go to Yale or should I go to Harvard? And not necessarily because of any good choice that person made prior, but simply due to circumstances into which they were born. Until very recently, and for all I know this still goes on at some level, some kids got into these great schools with these amazing opportunities simply because their parents and or grandparents went there. Individual merit be damned. If you're one of those people, thank Darwin. But let me be clear here. This is not an argument against hard work and making good choices. If you hope to have any chance to get ahead without luck, these tools absolutely need to be in your toolbox. My point is rather that these tools, while necessary, are often insufficient, particularly for those whose initial circumstances and opportunities are in some meaningful way mired in misfortune. I believe that this idea is at the heart of our political divide, as one's acknowledgement of the role luck plays in all of our lives determines how one sees oneself and their fellow man. You'll either see the world as divided into the winners and the losers, the makers and the takers, or you will see the world divided into the fortunate and the less so. One of those worldviews will inspire compassion and empathy for those a few rungs down the ladder. The other will inspire nothing but contempt and suspicion. From such people, no assistance will be offered because those of us somewhere down a rung or three are getting exactly what we deserve, just as they are. And the only way we'll learn is to suffer through it and pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, just like they did, even if they began life on third base and brag about hitting a triple. To them, the universe is a place filled with opportunity and justice for all. So if you can't find that, well, that's just your problem, and no one else's.